each civil war is as unique as the countries in which they occur. So it's difficult to say how water is going to address civil wars writ large. But here's one sort of attitude that I have about how to improve cooperation with in terms of water governance. And that is, if you imagine the world as like a golf ball, it's just a sphere covered in divots. Each divot represents a drainage basin into which all water drains to a common point. If we could go back in time and redraw all jurisdictional boundaries, we would possibly redraw them all to correspond to watersheds and recreate jurisdictional boundaries so that we only had countries based on drainage basins. That's obviously politically infeasible. You can't do that. But much of international and transboundary water law is predicated on the idea of attempting to approximate that, to create some governance institution that governs at the basin level rather than at the national level or at the local level. And I call this, in the book, I call it Goldilocks governance. If we govern too big, then there are too many transaction costs and finding solutions are too difficult. We govern too small, there are too many externalities and governing is too difficult. Governing at the basin level is just right. So one possible way that we can help to mitigate water conflict is to draw the jurisdictional boundaries more appropriately, so that at the very least, we're not watching water become a source of conflict, or at least a conflict aggravator or amplifier, which is what water usually is. When it comes to armed conflict, the vast majority of the time, water is a catalyst for cooperation and not conflict. Most of the time, water helps us get together. I think you see that in the Jordan River Basin. Of all the many attempts that we've had to improve cooperation, the Joint Water Committee remains a relative success. At the very least, it's still there, which how many things from the 1994 Peace Treaty and from the Oslo Accords even exist anymore? And the Joint Water Committee still exists. I think it still has major problems, but it hasn't died, which that by itself is some measure of success. Think about 1974, while bullets are still flying between Pakistan and India, they reached the Indus Water Treaty. So water is usually a source of cooperation. I think it's not surprising that our earliest civilizations arose around desert rivers. That is where we all learned how to get along with each other, was along the banks of desert rivers. But this goes back to my argument about better basin level governance. Civil war usually can be mitigated by better water cooperation, but sometimes gets aggravated. Take my own home region. It was in 1933 that Arizona nearly entered into a civil war against its neighboring state, California, over the Colorado River. California began building the Parker Dam. We had spies in California. When California crossed into Arizona's territory, the spies informed the governor. The governor marched out troops to blow up the dam and kill the Californians. At this exact same time, martial law was declared over the Red River and conflict brewed between Texas and Oklahoma. And there's actually correspondence in Germany amongst generals of the Third Reich saying that the United States would not enter into World War II because they were about to fall into a water-based civil war. So you can see water as both a chance for improved cooperation, as it has been in the Indus and in the Jordan, and as a risk for civil war, as it has been even in my own river basin.